Um, I'm going to try this again. My name is Deborah Byrne. My service is known across social media as DBpsychology. This week I'm talking about acquired brain injury. It's just a little educational piece for people that are curious to know what it is, and also has developed acquired brain injury and they want to get some basic information and where to go for further help. So, as I was saying, you can check out this week's blog at www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com. Acquired brain injury is basically any injury that occurs to the brain after birth. So it can happen at any time from birth onwards. It can, it has a high level in the 15 to 29-year-olds. They're 3 times more likely to get an acquired brain injury, and why that is because sports, they're very active with sports, so that puts them up there. But it can happen to anybody. The causes are very varied. A lot of us, I'm not going to list out all the causes, but I have done quite an extensive list in the blog. I'll give you some of the reasons and some of the causes in a moment. And you'll probably wonder, you'll have heard of some of the diseases, you'll have heard of some of the causes, but you won't have related them to acquired brain injury, or in some places they call it traumatic brain injury. So the causes can be a trauma. That's the first one. Trauma can be the likes of domestic violence, physical blow to the head, repeated blows to the head, or repeated, you were hitting your head against the wall or things like that. Somewhere you're going to impact, so some sort of impact injury. So it would be domestic violence, an assault, a traffic accident, work-related accident, and again, the big one in trauma would be sports injuries. As I said, the 15 to 29-year-olds being the biggest group there in that category. The next would be the likes of a stroke, then a viral infection to the brain, Alzheimer's, which some of you mightn't realise. There's a few diseases here now, like Alzheimer's, cancer, MS, and Parkinson's. All can have, you can get required brain injuries there. And then, of course, the likes of strangulation, choking, drowning. Basically, that causes hypoxia. So therefore, you're cutting off oxygen to the brain, and it can cause a brain injury. Illegal drugs, or in some cases, misuse of prescription drugs. I know there's a massive epidemic in opioid use, so that is a big concern, but can cause brain injury. You can actually damage your brain. So we can't just put it down to what would be classed as illegal drugs. Poisoning, again, this would, drugs are poison. They can be toxic. They can be very good for you if they're prescribed and they're doing what they're supposed to do, but if you misuse them, it could be poisonous or toxic to your body. So any poisons and toxics, things like that, the standard poisons, standard toxins, will also and can also give you acquired brain injury. So the level of damage will depend on the level of severity. Therefore, the list of symptoms are extremely long. You can have some of them, you can have one or two of them, or you could have all of them. They're divided up into a number of categories. In terms of symptoms, there's cognitive symptoms, which would be the likes of confusion, inability to plan or organize or make decisions. Can be quite hard to make a decision. Perception then can also change. That's the next category in terms of symptoms. So that's the likes of your vision can be impaired. You could lose your vision, lose your hearing, lose your balance could be off center. Touch can be damaged. And most people would put those down as physical symptoms. Yes, they can be physical symptoms, but they are also perception symptoms, and I've listed other perception symptoms there. Physical symptoms, you can have the likes of headaches, again, as I said, the vision and loss of vision, loss of hearing, your balance, your headaches, paralysis, tremors, and there's a whole range of other physical symptoms. Emotional and behavioural, I think, are the ones that people find the most difficult, because you can have a complete change of personality. Um, you can have mood swings, aggression, and those symptoms can be very hard to deal with, both as the person who has the acquired brain injury, but also as family and friends. If you've had, the person that has the acquired brain injury may not be aware that their whole personality has changed. And there can be a range of problems with regard to the symptoms. Sometimes, because the list is so long, and because depending on where the damage occurs in the brain, the symptoms can lead to not a physical disability. So people, the public, outside your family, outside your very close friends, may not realise that the person has acquired brain injury. And this can cause huge problems for the person. People, don't realise that it is a disability. They don't realise that this person has a disability. They don't recognise that, that they are acting is part of their disability. They may, in fact, and it has happened, people are seen because they've got a balance problem, for instance. They're thought, oh, he's just drunk, or she's just drunk. Middle of the day, and they see somebody staggering, they think, oh, they're drunk. That person that's staggering, or that person who has the shakes, or that person who is can't make a clear decision, may not be drunk. They may have an acquired brain injury, and this can lead to a lot of discrimination. So, we have to be more aware of that. Symptoms like these, and symptoms, there's a lot more symptoms I've listed in the blog, can be a sign of a disability, and not just, pass it off as somebody who's, drunk or high, or, dismiss somebody so easily, and perhaps they need help. Perhaps they got lost, that they couldn't find their way, and they got lost, they got separated from a family or friend, and they're lost. Think about it. Take a second to think that maybe not everybody you're seeing is what you're seeing. It isn't what you're seeing. It could be to do with a disability. So, open your eyes and think about what you're looking at. The treatment is varied, of course. It will be with regard to, it depends on the disease, it depends on the causes, it depends on the symptoms and how they are treated. Usually you'd have occupational therapist involved, a physiotherapist involved, speech and language therapists, and of course psychologists involved, because family, friends, and the person with the acquired brain injury need that support as well. You may have all of those people. You may have a variety of consultants. Your GP is going to be involved. What being called the district nurse, was the health visitor, would be involved. But most of all, you've got to understand that in Ireland, if you have an acquired brain injury, and I talk about this more in the blog, there is a thing called an individual rehabilitation plan. Now, that plan allows the person and their family or their carer to be involved in making that plan and to set goals, the goals that the person themselves wants to achieve. And the team then, that, if you need an occupational therapist, if you need a speech therapist, if you need, you probably need psychologists, because people do need counselling. They do need counselling after this to adjust. All these people will come to this meeting, but you as the person and you as the family should not be excluded from this meeting. You should be there. The person, these IRPs allow the person that has the injury to make the decisions, to be in charge. And this is very, very important. So, I've listed out at the very end, you go down and there's AIB Ireland and Headway Ireland are there. the links out to them. They talk more about it. There are people you can contact there who will be able to give you more information about these IRPs, and they can help you. Now, I also talk about some consequences, and I also talk about if you are a family member or a friend, things that you can do to help yourself, because it is a very emotional and stressful time, not just for the person involved, but for their families. And you need help. The consequences of having a loved one with an acquired brain injury are similar to the consequences of anyone that has a disability. You know, there's financial implications. There are very practical implications depending on, does that person have children, or are they married, or, is there a mortgage, or there's a whole range of things you've got to think about. Well, these are all practical things that still have to be taken care of. But at the same time, you're now changing. I'm sorry for the delay. Facebook wasn't playing nicely this morning.